Rain fell over Madrid that night like shards of glass against the rooftops. The old apartment buildings of Alecas stood in silence, their walls soaked in years of secrets, grief, and whispered prayers. Inside one of those buildings, in apartment 3C, 17-year-old Maria Velasco sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, surrounded by flickering candles and half-drawn sketches. Her room was small, crowded with books, colored pencils, and old family photographs. The air smelled faintly of wax and rain. The only sound came from the cassette radio beside her. A late-night paranormal talk show whispered through the static. "They say," the host murmured, "that sometimes the dead remain when they have nowhere else to go." Maria turned it off quickly, her fingers trembling. The quiet afterward was heavier than the storm outside. On her desk stood a framed photo of her family. Her mother Lucia, her younger twin siblings Sofia and Raul, and her father, Father Andres Velasco, a kind-eyed priest who had died only 8 months ago under mysterious circumstances. Since then, silence had filled the apartment like a fog that refused to lift. Lucia worked double shifts at the hospital. Most nights, Maria became the caretaker, helping the twins with homework, cooking dinner, keeping the house alive. But lately, strange things had been happening. Whispers in the night, doors that creaked open by themselves, the feeling that someone else was always in the room. That night, as thunder cracked over the city, Lucia called from the kitchen. "Maria, it is late. Go to bed. Cariñen tu more minuts, mama," Maria replied, not looking up from her sketchbook. She had drawn something unusual. A tall, faceless woman standing behind a small child. The figure's hands were too long, her body slightly bent, as if watching the girl sleep. Maria didn't remember studying that drawing. She only realized it was finished when she felt her own heartbeat quicken. From the kitchen came the sound of a fridge opening, then closing. A second later, Lucia's voice broke the silence again. But it wasn't a call this time. It was a faint gasp. Lucia froze by the refrigerator door, eyes darting to the hallway. A whisper brushed past her ear. It said her daughter's name, Maria. She turned sharply. Nothing. Only the hum of the refrigerator and the soft ticking of the clock. Lucia pressed a hand to her chest, shaking her head. "You're just tired," she muttered to herself. "Too tired." But the whisper didn't sound like her imagination. It sounded real. Maria set her pencil down and listened. A low tapping came from the wall beside her bed. Slow, deliberate. 3 short knocks. Tap, tap. Her heart skipped. She stood and pressed her ear to the wall, hearing a faint rustle, almost like breathing Sofia Rao. She called softly. "No answer. Answer." The air in the room felt colder suddenly. The candles flickered violently, throwing shadows that twisted across the walls like black serpents. Then came the whisper again. Closer this time, right beside her ear, Maria. She jumped, spinning around. The room was empty. Holding her breath, Maria stepped into the hallway. The tiles under her bare feet were icy. From the twins' room came a faint giggle, children's laughter, muffled and strange. She pushed their door open. Sofia and Raul were both asleep, their faces peaceful in the dim glow of their nightlight. But the closet door behind them was slightly open, its darkness swallowing the light around it. Maria stared at it, heart hammering. "Come play, Maria." The whisper came again, this time from the darkness inside the closet. She gasped, slammed the door shut, and ran back to her room, locking it. For a few moments she just stood there, shaking. Then, without warning, a small wooden crucifix above her bed fell clattering to the floor. She screamed. Lucia rushed in, panic on her face. What happened? The crucifix, it fell by itself. Lucia picked it up, examining the wall. "It's just loose. Cariño. Stop scaring yourself, no. Mama. It wasn't there." There was a voice. Someone whispering my name. Enough. Lucia snapped, her exhaustion breaking through. "You're dreaming again. Go to sleep." She left, closing the door behind her. Maria sat trembling, staring at the crucifix in her hands. The metal was freezing cold. "You promised you'd never leave us, Papa," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Later that night, thunder rolled again, shaking the windows. The apartment was silent except for the steady drip of rain outside. Lucia had fallen asleep on the sofa, still in her nurse's uniform, the television humming softly. Then the power flickered once, twice, and went out completely. The screen filled with static for a split second, and through the white noise appeared a woman-esque face, pale and hollow-eyed, whispering words no sound carried. Darkness swallowed the room. In her bedroom, Maria woke instantly. Her candle had gone out, but a faint red glow came from inside her closet. She sat up slowly, staring at Italiano. The light shimmered like a dying ember. When she stood and took a step closer, she realized what was glowing: her father's rosary, hanging from a coat hanger, its beads pulsing with faint crimson light. Her voice trembled. "Papa." The rosary swayed as if moved by invisible hands. Then a blast of icy wind burst from the closet, knocking the candle over. The flame went out, plunging the room into total darkness. "Maria!" screamed. Lucia ran in moments later, flashlight shaking in her hand. "Maria, what's happening?" Maria pointed at the closet. It moved. His rosary. It glowed. Lucia swung the flashlight beam across the room. Everything was still. The rosary hung motionless, dull and ordinary again. "It is nothing," Lucia said, though her voice trembled slightly. "It belonged to your father. Stop imagining things." She kissed Maria's forehead and left, turning off the flashlight. Maria sat alone again, staring at the darkness until the shape of her father's rosary blurred into the shadows. Morning came gray and heavy. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still colorless. At school, Maria's eyes were tired and hollow. Her friends, Anna and Carla, noticed immediately. "You look like a ghost," Galana teased gently. "Did you sleep at all?" Maria shook her head. "No. There's something in my house. I keep hearing it." Carla rolled her eyes. "It's probably just your imagination. You draw creepy stuff all the time. Maybe it's getting in your head." Maria didn't answer. She couldn't explain the cold breath she'd felt in her skin, or the whisper that knew her name. It wasn't imagination. It was something else. During break, as she crossed the schoolyard, Maria caught sight of Sister Mercedes, the elderly nun who oversaw the chapel. The woman stood by the church doors, watching her with an expression that was not curiosity, but recognition. When Maria met her gaze, the nun turned away, disappearing into the chapel. That afternoon, Maria stayed behind after class. As she walked through the empty hallways, she passed the old photography lab. The door was half open. Inside, the red light from the developing room glowed faintly, casting long shadows. She stepped in. Rows of photographs hung from thin strings, still drying. They were from the recent school festival. Smiling faces, laughter, color. But one picture caught her attention. Her class photo. In it, she stood in the front row, but behind her, in the shadows, there was a faint shape, a tall, dark figure with blurred features, a hand resting on her shoulder. Her breath caught. She moved closer. The longer she stared, the clearer the figure became, its hand elongating, fingers stretching unnaturally toward her neck. A hand touched her shoulder. She gasped and spun around. It was Sister Mercedes. "You should not be here," the nun said softly, eyes narrowing at the photo. "I was just looking." "You have your father's eyes," the nun interrupted. "He was a good man, but his faith led him to dangerous places." Maria frowned. "What do you mean?" Sister Mercedes looked at her with something between pity and fear. "He tried to help souls that could not be helped. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed." Before Maria could ask more, the nun turned and walked away, her rosary beads clicking softly like distant chains. That night, the wind returned, moaning through the alleyways of Lucia worked another late shift. leaving Maria alone with the twins asleep in their room. In the faint light of her candle, Maria tried to draw again, anything to distract herself. But every time she moved her pencil, she found herself sketching the same thing. The shadowed woman behind her. Her hand began to tremble. The candle flame swayed violently, though no window was open. And then she saw it. Her shadow, stretching across the wall, but moving out of sync with her body. She froze. Slowly, the shadow turned its head toward her, though she hadn't moved. Her mouth went dry. "Who are you?" she whispered. The shadows stilled. Then, from somewhere behind her, a woman's voice answered in a low, trembling murmur. "I am what he left behind." Lightning flashed, and in that instant, the shadow vanished. The room was empty again, except for her drawing. When she looked down, she realized the shadowed woman in the sketch now had eyes. Dark human eyes staring back at her. Maria dropped the pencil and backed away, trembling. Her whisper cracked into the silence. "Papa, what did you do?" The candles blew out, leaving only darkness. The next morning dawned cold and gray, as if sunlight itself had forgotten Madrid. Clouds hung low over the rooftops, and the air smelled of wet stone. Maria hadn't slept a single hour. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same image, a tall shadow with hollow eyes standing behind her, whispering her name in a voice that sounded almost like her father's. "Lucia left early for work, leaving a note on the kitchen table. Breakfast is on the stove. Take Sofia and Raul to school. Please, rest. Cariño." Maria didn't touch the food. The apartment felt strange that morning. Too quiet, too still. The walls seemed to hum faintly, like they were alive. As she buttoned her jacket to walk the twins to school, she passed the hallway mirror and stopped. For a moment, she thought she saw two reflections herself, and behind her, a pale woman watching with an expression of unbearable sadness. When she blinked, it was gone. Later that day at school, everything felt wrong. The corridors buzzed with noise and laughter, but Maria heard it as though underwater, muffled, distant. She kept glancing at every shadow that passed her. Every window seemed to reflect someone who wasn't there. During lunch, her friend Carla nudged her arm. "Hey, Berto Maria, you look like you've seen a ghost again." Maria's voice came out flat. "Maybe I have." Carla laughed nervously, but Anna frowned. "Don't joke about that. You remember what happened to her dad?" The laughter died instantly. Everyone in the school knew the rumors that Father Andres Velasco had died during a failed exorcism in a rural church. Some said the woman he tried to save had screamed his name until the walls bled. Others whispered that he'd brought something back with him that night. Something that refused to let go. Maria stood, her tray untouched. "I have to go," she said quietly. Int. School library, afternoon dust. Motes floated through the air like tiny spirits. Maria sat alone in a corner, flipping through one of her father's old journals she'd found hidden in a box under his bed. The pages were filled with Latin verses, sketches of symbols, and strange notes written in his neat handwriting. One passage caught her eye. "If the spirit binds itself to the living through grief, it cannot be expelled. It must be invited and released by will, not force." She frowned. Invited. Before she could read more, a voice startled her. "Curiosity can be dangerous, Nina." She looked up. Sister Mercedes stood at the end of the aisle, her expression grim. "You were close to your father," the nun continued, "but you must not walk the path he did. He tried to speak with the dead and they listened." Maria's throat felt dry. What happened to him? What did he bring home? Sister Mercedes hesitated. "Something that feeds on guilt, a shadow born from sorrow. It takes the shape of what you miss most." "The woman I saw," Maria whispered. "Is that her?" The nun's face darkened. "If you have seen her, it is already too late to ignore. You must not talk to it, Maria Letters. You must not answer when it calls your name." Maria opened her mouth to reply, but Sister Mercedes had already turned and walked away. That evening, rain began again. Light at first, then heavy, a steady drumbeat on the roof. The twins were in bed, fast asleep. Lucia was still at work. Maria sat alone in the living room, the old journal open on her lap. The entry from the night before her father's death was different from the rest. His handwriting was hurried, desperate. The woman's soul is trapped, but not hers alone. Something else answers when I pray. It knows me. It calls my name. I fear it waits for Maria letters. Her stomach turned cold. He had written her name. She flipped the page and found a sketch, a symbol drawn in black ink, a circle with 7 lines crossing through its center. Beneath it, her father had written, "Do not repeat the right without faith. It binds what it cannot free." Maria stared at it, heart racing. All right, maybe that was what her father had done, some kind of seance. If it brought the shadow here, maybe she could use it to send it away. Into Maria's room night. By midnight, Maria had gathered everything she needed. Candles, chalk, a bowl of salt, her father's rosary, and the photograph of her family. She sat in the center of her room, lights off, the storm rumbling outside like the growl of an unseen beast. She drew the same circle from her father's sketch on the floor, carefully copying the lines and symbols. Then she whispered softly, repeating the Latin words from the journal. Spiritus, ostengi veritatem. Spirit, show me the truth. The candles flickered. The air grew heavy and thick. She felt her breath shorten, as if the room were shrinking around her. She spoke again, louder. If you're my father, please show me. I need to know why you stayed. The window banged open with a crash. Wind tore through the room, extinguishing 2 candles. The last flame danced wildly, and in it, for a single moment, she saw the outline of her father's face. "Papa," she whispered, but when the face opened its mouth, the voice that came was not his. "You called me." Maria, the light went out. In the pitch-black room, something moved. Soft footsteps circled her. She felt cold fingers brush the back of her neck. "He tried to free me, but he failed," the voice hissed. "Now you will take his place." Se screamed, knocking over the bowl of salt. The circle broke. The sound that followed was a deep, rumbling moan like the growl of something ancient. Then silence. The aftermath. Lucia returned home an hour later to find Maria unconscious on the floor. The candles melted to black stubs. The chalk circle was smeared, and her daughter's hand clutched the rosary so tightly it had cut her skin. "Maria!" Lucia cried, shaking her awake. Maria opened her eyes slowly. Her pupils were wide. "Unfocused, Mama," she whispered. "It wasn't him. It wasn't he." "Papa." Lucia Estes fell freely as she held her. "You're just tired. It's over." But it wasn't. That night after Lucia put Maria to bed, she returned to the living room. The lights flickered again. Just once, then steadied. She sighed, thinking it was the storm. Then the television turned on by itself. Static filled the screen, and through the white noise came a faint voice. A man's voice. "Lucia, help her. Lucia Frusen. Andres." The static hissed louder. The voice came again, warped and broken. She opened the door. The screen went black. Lucia rushed to Maria's room, but the bed was empty. Into apartment hallway. Continuous. The front door stood slightly open, swinging in the wind. Water from the storm pooled on the floor. Lucia stepped out, calling her daughter's name. "Maria, where are you?" A faint whisper drifted from the stairwell. "Down here, Mama." Lucia's breath caught. She turned toward the dark stairway leading to the building. As basement, a place they had Auntie used since her husband. "Has death, Maria?" No reply, just that same whisper, soft and echoing. She took the flashlight from the wall and descended. Int. Basement night, the air was damp. The stone walls stained with mold. Old furniture lay covered in sheets. In the corner, Lucia saw movement, her daughter kneeling on the floor, drawing something in chalk. "Maria," she cried, running to her. "What are you doing?" Maria turned slowly. Her eyes were wide, distant, and for a moment Lucia saw something else looking back through them. "It wants me," Maria said in a flat voice. "It said I could bring him back." "Stop this, please." Lucia grabbed her shoulders. Maria blinted, the confusion flickering in her expression. "Mama." Then the ground beneath them trembled. The chalk circle she'd drawn began to glow faintly, the lines twisting as if alive. A dark mist rose from its center, shaping itself into a figure. Lucia pulled Maria back. "Run." But the door slammed shut. The figure solidified, the same pale woman from Maria's drawings, her mouth stretched in a soundless scream. "You called me," the entity whispered. "Now we are one." Lucia clutched her daughter, whispering prayers through tears as the figure advanced, its eyes like black glass, the flashlight shattered. Darkness filled the room. The next morning, the neighbors found Lucia and Maria lying unconscious on the basement floor. The circle was gone, wiped clean. Lucia woke hours later in the hospital, but Maria did not. When doctors examined her, they said she was alive, breathing but in a deep, unresponsive trance. Her body remained still. Her lips, however, moved faintly. The nurse who checked her swore she heard her whisper a single word over and over again. "Papa," and somewhere far away, in the old church where Father Andres had died. A faint echo answered back Maria. The church bell of Santa Lucia rang once, hollow and uneven, as if struck by a dying hand. The sound echoed through the dark corridors of the old convent, bouncing between stone walls that had seen too many secrets. Tohamushpain. Isabella stumbled inside, barefoot, her nightgown torn, her hair damp from the night rain. The rosary she clutched trembled in her hand, beads slick with sweat. Behind her, the iron door slammed shut, not by her will, but by something unseen. "Padre!" she screamed. Padre Morales, her voice cracked. It was the same voice that once sang hymns in the school choir. Nara with terror, but no one answered. Only the whisper of the wind moving through the broken stained glass windows. "De confession." The candlelight flickered violently as she reached the confessional booth. On the other side, she saw movement. A shadow, the silhouette of a man in a cassock. Her breath caught. "Padre, please, it's happening again." The priest's voice came softly, calm and steady. "Tell me, hija mía, what did you do?" Isabella hesitated. "I didn't mean to open it again. The it. I burned it. I swear I burned it." The shadow leaned closer. "You cannot burn what does not belong to you." Her pulse raced. "What?" What do you mean?" The air grew cold, frost spreading across the booth's wooden surface. From the grill, two eyes appeared not human, glinting like mirrors. "You played with the dead, Isabella, and the dead remembered your name." She screamed, stumbling back. The confessional door burst open by itself, revealing emptiness inside. There was no priest. No one. Only the scent of sulfur and something metallic blood. She ran toward the chapel, the rosary swinging from her wrist. As she reached the altar, she froze. Someone was kneeling there. Elena, her younger sister, turned slowly, her eyes black as obsidian. "Isabella," Elena whispered. "You left me." No, I tried to save you." Tears streamed down Isabella's face. It wasn't supposed to happen that night. The candle fell. "You didn't try hard enough." Elena's voice deepened, distorted. "You opened the door and never closed it." The candles in the chapel extinguished one by one. Darkness swallowed everything, and then came the whisper. Hundreds of voices layered together, chanting in Latin, "Sungis, pro, sungi, anima, pro, anima blood, for blood, soul for soul, ... Closing parentheses. Elena's body began to rise from the floor, her head tilting unnaturally as her feet hovered above the ground. Her face melted into a blank mask of shadow. Isabella fell to her knees. "Please, Dios mío, forgive me!" The chapel walls shuddered. Crucifixes turned upside down. Statues of saints wept black tears. The Mother Superior's diary lightning struck the bell tower. In that flash, Isabella saw something gleaming. A small black book lying open on the altar. She recognized it immediately. The diary of the Mother Superior. She grabbed it, her hands trembling as she read the last entry. Written decades ago, the girl called Lucia opened the door with a mirror and a candle. She said she wanted to talk to her dead brother. The thing that came instead were his voice, his face, until it no longer needed to. We sealed her beneath the chapel. But the door, it waits to be opened again. The ink had bled into the pages, but one line was still clear, underlined with deep pressure. The next girl will bear the same mark. Isabella looked down at her arm. The same black bruise that had appeared on Lucia's portrait in the painting had formed beneath her skin. Her veins pulsed, spreading darkness up her shoulder. Elena, or what remained of her, reached out, her fingers long and sharp, eyes reflecting candlelight that wasn't there. "It's your turn, Hermana," Isabella whispered, clutching the rosary. "Take me, not them. Just me." The shadow froze. Offer accepted. Pain ripped through her chest as the rosary snapped, beads scattering across the floor like raindrops. Her body lifted off the ground, twisting. The air filled with shrieks, some hers, some belonging to things long dead. Her eyes turned black, and then silence. The wind stopped. The candles reignited. The chapel stood still. Isabella lowered to her knees, her head bowed. When she lifted her face, her expression was calm. "To come," she smiled. "Bendícenos, Padre, porque he pecado. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned." Her voice wasn't her own. 1 year later, the convent was reopened as a Catholic school. Children's laughter echoed through its restored halls. No one spoke of the tragedy that had happened the year before. In the main corridor, a large painting of St. Lucia hung again, her hands folded in prayer. But every now and then, when the hallway lights flickered, you could see something else in the reflection of the glass. A girl's face, watching from behind the paint. Sometimes she smiled, and sometimes the faint sound of a bell rang 3 times, though the bell tower had long been sealed. Night, a storm brews over Madrid. Inside the old convent, one light remains, the chapel candle that never dies out. From the shadows, a figure walks Isabella, her hair neat, her eyes serene. She kneels before the altar and opens the black diary once again. She whispers softly in Latin, "Domina, apede mi, Januamen, Lord. Open the door for me." The ground beneath her cracks. From the fissure, a hand emerges, pale, childlike. Elena's voice returns, a whisper filled with longing and hate. "Now we are together, Hermana." Isabella smiles through tears. Simpri. The chapel collapses into darkness, and the bell of Santa Lucia rings one last time.